What is up, everybody? Chris Fluke here. Chris Fluke Podcast, episode number 121. Today, this one's for the kids, man. We're going to be talking about the kids. If you're a parent, if you're a coach, if you're anybody that works with children, a teacher. I'm hoping that you could get something from this one, man. This is just my random thoughts, things that happened over the last month that we're going to try to put together in some sort of clear and concise episode here. Now, JFK, John F. Kennedy Jr., our growing softness, our increasing lack of physical fitness is a menace to our security. That was said in the 60s. Today, we're in much worse shape than we were back then, 60 plus years ago. Now, we've been on this downward trend, man. The slope has been a slippery one since those years. But over these past couple years, things have gotten worse, and they've gotten much worse in the younger population. Coming up in a conversation, I start dropping some numbers at some people that I just recently read, and their mind was kind of blown. They were kind of in the healthcare field, and she's a nutritionist at a hospital, and she was like, oh, wow, I didn't really know that. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, the information is out there. It's just a matter of whether or not we're going to see it. So during those years of those lockdowns that we had with COVID, man, childhood obesity, so not just overweight, obesity, right? 19% to 22% in the children population, right? In the youth of our country, right? And in addition to that, the severely obese, their average weight gain per year went from 8.8 pounds to 14.6 pounds. The moderately obese, their weight gain went from 6.5 pounds to 12 pounds per year. And then the normal kids, their weight gain went from 3.4 to 5.4. So even the normal weight kids are gaining 2 pounds extra per year, right? Like we've talked about previously, overweight kids become overweight adults for the most part. I think I did a podcast on this, fat cells. Yale University talked about once these fat cells are in our body, you know, they could shrink, they could shrivel, but they don't totally go away. They just kind of wait there, and they're waiting to be fed. Once they're fed, they start to explode and expand. It is, in the opinion of that article, why it was so easy to put weight back on after losing it. You know, your body, once it is, say, overweight, you can shrink down. But those fat cells, man, they're just kind of waiting to expand and explode on you. All right, so that's why it's easy to put the weight back on. I think the name was Art Devaney, fitness guy. Hey, Art, what is the best way to lose fat? He said, don't get fat in the first place. All right, harsh. I've been there. I'm weighing 190 pounds right now. I was 220 in college. You know, I went from a 180-pound high school kid, senior, to 220 pounds. I put 40 pounds on in 2 years. I know the slope's slippery, and I know how easy it could be to get down on that path. What snapped me out of it? I don't know. I changed my environment, and it seemed to work. Maybe I felt like a loser long enough, drinking too much, eating too much crap, and kind of snapped me out of it. The harsh reality kind of got me back on track. We need that harsh reality. These numbers, I hope, provide some harsh realities for some families, for some people out there, to kind of get some kids moving in the right direction, to maybe get the soda out of the house, get rid of the cookies, stop buying the ice cream, okay? Let's make that a special thing, not an everyday thing. Now, going along with this, it's hard to be a parent. That is well said. I mean, that is well established, I guess we could say, right? We got to do whatever we can. I mean, I think it's our job to get our children as prepared for the world as we can, right? So we don't want to, you know, put them in bubbles, so to speak. We don't want to be overbearing, the helicopter parent, and all these other words that are out there, right? We want to give our kids some space to explore. One great thing that I heard is, like, you want to give the kids, life is like a puzzle, sports are like a puzzle, teaching is like a puzzle. You want to put all of those pieces out there, and then you want them to kind of find these pieces and start putting them together. So how do we do that as a parent, as an adult? We got to be present with them. We have to kind of show them the way. We have to live. We have to lead by example. We can't just say, do as I say, not as I do. We have to do both. The words that we say matter, but our actions are what's going to have the most profound effect on their behavior, all right? So if you're mean to people, if you're evil to people, if you talk trash on people, there's a good chance they're going to hear it and they might replicate that behavior. If you're eating healthy, you enjoy exercising, you enjoy going for walks, you like to be outside in nature, you like to read books, you like to garden, I mean, you like to play, you like to relax, you like to have fun. If those are things you're into, your kids are probably going to be into it. If you like to sit around and watch movies for 3 hours a day, they're probably going to want to sit around and watch television for 3 hours a day, right? So it's our actions, it's our behavior that's going to lead them on whatever path we're going to lead to. We're in a position now where parents are working, right? Both parents are working, so parents aren't able to be there as much as they were, I think, in decades past. This is kind of an opinion piece here, which is fine because it's my podcast, right? So I know we have two parents working now, so whoever's watching the kid, whether it be a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a babysitter, a nanny, whatever it may be, no matter what, it's a little bit different, the way their relationship with the kid than a parent's relationship with the kid. It's like that substitute teacher effect, right? Where you get that substitute in there and you know, all right, this is good. They're going to be a little bit more lax than our normal teacher. We might be able to get away with a few things that we're not normally able to. And if that person is constantly around them, then they're going to be getting away with things that they shouldn't be doing for long periods of time. Let's say just weeks, months, years, right, of being around that same person that is raising the kid, right? So if they're around them, then those things are going to become ingrained habits, and they're going to be fighting these battles over and over again, either with the caregiver or with your child, or probably both, right? Because at the end of the day, it's hard to convince somebody, that you're, well, you know what, I guess there's a fine line, right? Because they are doing something for you, and you would hope that they would have your best interest in mind. But it's hard, right? It's hard to be, respected from somebody that's not your kid, so to speak, right? You got to kind of build that over time. Then you got to be firm, and you got to have the ability to lay some ground rules, right? So what's my thoughts on all this? We already talked about being present. We already talked about being good examples. We also need to understand who's influencing our kid, right? It's going to be you as a parent. Hopefully you're around enough that you can influence them in a good way. And then the environment that you place them in, right? Remember the puzzle piece, right? There's a lot of different puzzle options out there. You want them to use the specific pieces of the puzzle so that they can put it together in a way that you think is best for them. All right. Now moving on. Another powerful tool that I think we could use to get these kids on the right direction is to create moments. Create special things. That I just learned this a couple weeks ago, was reminded of it. We had a young girl, 5 years old, climb our rope in here in the gym. And everybody, she was the youngest by far. I didn't realize that she was only 5 when she registered. And I was like, oh yeah, sure, let's go. Sign them up, bring them in, no problem. Then there's like 10 and 11-year-olds in there, and they're all cheering, they're all chanting. And this little girl climbs the ropes. Her mom sent a message or responded to something that was just like, my little girl's never going to forget that, and, thanking the older girls for kind of helping create that moment. So if you're able to create these positive moments in your kid's life somehow, some way, I try to, and I'm not saying I do this for everybody, but I think it would be so awesome if I could figure out a way to pull that off, pull that special moment off for everybody that comes in here, right? And I have to try to keep that in mind. Because, I had the ability in my line of work to influence a kid, create one of those special moments that will last a lifetime, and that they would encourage them to want to exercise and continue on that path of physical fitness for the rest of their lives. And if we're able to do that, then I think we're being successful here. Another thing that I learned, young kids, man, we got to be clear and concise with what we tell, with our instruction. I've got my daughter's 4, right? I talk about her all the time, probably. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to get a little workout crew going for her and her buddies. So we have a bunch of 4 and 6-year-olds that come in here. Depending on the week, it's like 5 to 7 kids between the ages of 4 and 6. So one day I'm like, all right, now we're going to go jump on the box. I take a look over there. I see a kid standing on top of the box, jumping up and down on it. I'm like, hey, what's going on over there? I thought if I said jump onto the box, they would understand to jump from the ground up onto the top of the box. They did not. They took me literally. I said, hey, go jump on that box. There's two kids go over, stand on the box, and they're jumping up and down on it. And it took me a minute to think, like, all right, how do I even try to fix this here? I had to think about what words I was going to use. And then it clicked. I literally told them to go jump on the box, right? So you got to be careful with your words. Those younger kids, man, they might take you literally, because that's all they know, right? You tell them something, they're going to just kind of go do it because maybe an adult, maybe somebody they respect, maybe their coach, maybe their teacher said to do it, right? But if there's some sort of little ambiguity in there, a little bit of cloudiness in terms of what you're saying to them, they might not be able to follow that direction, and it's not their fault. It's your fault as the leader, all right? Lesson learned, boys and girls. I'm trying to be a little bit more concise with what I'm saying. All right, and that kind of lesson carried over in the way that I communicate with others too. Just be clear and be concise, right? It's all we could ask for. And I guess, to be honest, right? Clear, concise, honest. Those are three qualities that I think can help communication go a very long way, right? All right, so this is what we got. We got leading by example. We've got creating moments. We have being a present force, creating that puzzle for our children. We went over those obesity statistics, which is scary, right? And then this last part here is going to be how much media is too much media. Matt Taibbi is a great writer. He wrote a book called Hate Inc. And he looks at the news and he looks at polarization. He looks at the divisiveness in our country, right? And this is for the adults. We're constantly searching for some sort of, I don't know what we're searching for, but we're searching for some sort of meaning, something to fulfill us, something to make us happy. And a lot of times it's finding, people in our own little network or environment. It's like we join a team, and then on that team, we kind of separate ourselves from the other side of it. And we start maybe doing things that aren't the best. It's like the clique idea that happens in high schools, right? People get in their little cliques, and they might not be the kindest. I think this clique issue carries over into the adult world, right? What we're doing with our, affiliations on, political means, topics like abortion, topics like gun control, topics like, what else is out there? Climate, right? It's pretty hateful conversations, and it's like, I think for the most part we could all understand that there's a certain thing, like we want our kids to be protected. Sure, right? That's fair. We want to have maybe more job opportunities for people. Who wouldn't want more people to have an opportunity to work? Things like that, right? I feel like there's things that most people could agree on that just kind of get ignored, and it's always these like polarizing things. So now when we look at where do we get that from? The media, right? Then we start looking at children, and a lot of kids have the ability, to be online and to look things up and to join different teams, join different cliques, maybe meet the wrong people, maybe meet the right people too, right? I guess there's always that option with it all. But we got to be mindful. How much media is too much media? I think right now, over the past couple of decades, we have a bit of a crisis going on, not only with the obesity here, but with the mental side of things, right? I talked about previously, talking to an emergency room doctor. He said we have an ER filled with suicidal teens, right? You start thinking, what is going on here? You see a lot of these things, people that are doing evil, like some of these shootings, and it's just like, what's going on here? What's going on in people's brains right now? What's going on in the United States of America that people aren't feeling good about themselves. They're not feeling good about life. I think in the future I'm going to talk about this book, Confessions by Leo Tolstoy. I mean, this man had it all. He was the most prolific writer. He's in his 50s. He has a loving family. He has anything he could ask for. But yet he kind of wanted more. And it got to the point that he removed any rope in his room because of fear that he would hang himself from the ceiling. He wouldn't go out on a hunting trip by himself because he thought he would take his life with a rifle. This is an individual who had it all, but was still missing something, right? And, I think today, for a lot of people, we're missing something. You're missing meaning, you're missing purpose in life, right? And I think at the end of all of this discussion, Tolstoy's big issue was that it was just always now what? He was chasing perfection. And unfortunately, the perfection didn't exist. He almost had perfection. He had a wife, he had a family, he had anything he could ask for, but yet he was still chasing some object that he didn't even know existed. Eventually, he found peace of mind, and he did not take his life, okay, in that moment. So he was able to find some peace with that. I think with this media stuff, I think we have the ability to get all worked up at any point in time of the day. You just could get on your phone and you just could start swiping, right? And you become hooked. You become almost addicted and obsessed with what is going on your news feed. And unfortunately, the newsfeed information is not always, it's kind of procured for you in a way based off your previous interest. And because of that, you'll get fed certain suggested pieces that are going to further get you fired up, right? Maybe further separate and create the divide. So what we have to do with kids, what we have to do with people in general, think about Tolstoy, always wanting more. with our kids, man. They're online and they're seeing, what is deemed perfection, right? I said Tolstoy had the perfect life from the outside looking in, but yet he was craving more. Our kids could have a great life, but they could be craving more. And a lot of times that could be fed by what they're consuming, all right? What they're swiping, what they're doing with their free time. You could be the best in the world at something, but yet you're still going to look at others and be like, man, I wish I had this, I wish I had that, right? It's got to be our job to try to reframe that somehow, some way, right? And there's a crisis going on in the world. You could go talk to that doctor in the emergency room, and he'll tell you how scary things are for some of these kids. He said you ask these, you meet them, you talk to them, everything seems to be fine. Just a normal kid. Then you start asking questions, and it's just checking the box, check the box, check the box, to the point that they would just be like, you know what, we have to keep you here. We check too many boxes. Suicidal tendencies, we cannot let you leave here. Now they have an emergency room. They have, overworked psychologists, overworked doctors trying to navigate these situations, and they're just not given enough resources for it. So we got to kind of find a way, somehow, some way at home, right? To prevent our kids from kind of falling into some sort of evil trap of always wanting more and not feeling good enough. Because then you get to this point like, hey, what is the point of life, right? This nihilistic type of thinking leads people to do behaviors that aren't good for anybody, all right? So let's keep pumping. Let's keep moving forward. Let's keep trying to create a better world through our children that we deal with on a regular basis. Hope you guys like this. Peace.